How will the Chicago Bears rookie running back David Montgomery fare in his very first NFL season? What is going on, y'all? Fox Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NFL here to talk a little Bears. So if you are Bears fans, make sure to go ahead and subscribe by hitting the subscribe button down below and turn on my post notifications because you don't want to miss out whenever I post new videos. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow me on my social media links down below and on the screen for my Twitter and my Instagram. You guys can talk, reach out to me on there, ask questions, whatever it is. I'm here for you guys. You guys see the whiteboard behind me. It's a whiteboard video, and you know what that means. It's going to be a football meat sandwich. Going to bring you guys a lot of analysis here. So be prepared. And of course, you see the topic. We are projecting how David Montgomery will do this coming season, which is, of course, his first season. I'm going to give you guys his stats, okay? So with that being said, I don't want to wait any longer. Let's get right into it. So not only will this be projecting David Montgomery's stats, but this will also be taking a look at the Bears running back situation, how the touches will be, divided up, who's going to get the bulk of it, and how all of that will play into effect here, okay? So with that being said, first thing we got to start out with is, of course, the main number of how many times will the Bears rush the ball this season, because that's going to obviously determine everything. Opportunity is everything, especially now, because there's going to be a lot of fantasy football plugs here, so you guys want to pay attention, because if you're drafting David Montgomery, this is what you want to know, right? Absolutely, in fantasy football. So the first number is 468. That is the number of times the Bears rushed the ball last season, okay? So Bears rushed this much, which was good for 6th in the NFL. All right? So now we've got something to work with here. We've got the number of times the Bears rushed the ball and how many times that was good for. Now let's take a look at our contenders for the rock. Who is going to carry the rock for the Bears? And of course, we will start with David Montgomery. Okay. We've got Tariq Cohen. And Tariq Cohen is actually listed as the starter on the Bears' unofficial depth chart that's put out. And again, things could change, but he is listed as the starter. David Montgomery is actually third behind Tariq Cohen and the next guy I was going to mention, which is Mike Davis, the running back we got from the Seattle Seahawks we signed in the offseason, okay? So those are our three main running backs, but the list does not end there, folks, because you have to remember there are other guys who also rush the ball for us. More notably, our starting quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, he's got some wheels on him. He rushed the ball sometimes last year, okay? So let's put Mitch in there. Okay? And then we also added another guy who can give you some rushing ability, and he's utilized. I like to call him the Swiss Army knife, and that is Cordarrelle Patterson, who we also signed from the New England Patriots, okay? So there you have it. And just for good measure, we're also going to be throwing in, Matt Nagy's creative genius plays of maybe, you got end arounds and rushing attempts by other guys like a Taylor Gabriel, maybe an Allen Robinson, who knows, okay? So we're just going to do an other column, okay? Because who knows? There should be certain players that get one or two rushing attempts here and there, okay? So we've got all of the main culprits here, these three being the biggest ones, of course. And then Trubisky and Patterson can run the ball as well. Why do I, of course, bring these guys up? Because we have to see how the touches are going to be divided here. So let's take a look at how many times all of these guys rushed the ball last season. So let's start from bottom up. Cordarrelle Patterson last year had 42 rushing attempts. Mitch Trubisky last year had 68 rushing attempts. Mike Davis last year had 112. Tariq Cohen had 99. David Montgomery, of course, has not played an NFL snap so far. And then other is, of course, also a question mark, which I will be discussing here. So we've got the 4 guys right here in terms of how much they ran the ball last year. Now, I'll start with these guys because that is going to determine, again, what David Montgomery rushes for, because we can't project his stats until we get his attempts. And if we get the attempts, then we can get the yardage, okay? So again, it's a process. So let's start here. And let's take a look at how I feel like the offense is going to evolve. And the biggest question mark right off the bat is Tariq Cohen, because like I mentioned, he's listed as number 1 on the depth chart, folks. And here's the thing. If Tariq Cohen increases or stays around this number of rushing attempts, that is obviously bad news for David Montgomery, because he is not going to have a lot of touches, okay? Or not as many touches as you would expect him to have. Now, here's the thing. Tariq Cohen, 99 touches last year. His rookie year, he had 87. Just to give real quick context here, Jordan Howard last year for the Bears had 250 carries, okay? So out of the 468, Jordan Howard had 250 of them, and Tariq Cohen had 99 of them. So basically 350 of them, or 349 of the 468, were just between these two guys. So Tariq Cohen, if I envision that he will be our main pass catching back, which means all pass catching plays, Tariq Cohen's on the field, then I would expect this number to go down, okay? And realistically, you guys might think that he might stay around this number, but if I'm projecting that our main rushers are David Montgomery and Mike Davis and not Tariq Cohen, then it can be reasonable to expect that his rushing attempts dip way down to 75. Now, that might seem dramatic, but I will explain. Hang with me here why that is very important, okay? Let's move on to Mike Davis, okay? And let's reduce his workload a little bit. He was sharing the rock last year with Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. But he's going to definitely get some carries. We didn't sign him to not play him. So let's go with 100 carries, okay? We're just going to use nice round numbers here. Around 100 carries for Mike Davis. Mitch Trubisky, I expect him to rush the ball or have less rushing attempts. Now, some of these could be improv, but here's the thing. The biggest thing with Mitch is we don't want him to get hurt, and Matt Nagy has talked about that extensively during training camp, and he said, we want Mitch to be smart. We want him to use his legs, absolutely. That's one of Mitch Trubisky's best qualities, that he can run the ball, but let's not go crazy here. So let's reduce his rushing attempts to 60, okay? And finally, Cordero Patterson, who ran the ball 42 times last year, I believe he's going to be utilized. Again, we didn't sign him to not use him. I think he's utilized. I think you can still put him down for about 40 rushing attempts, okay? And then as far as the other, let's just throw in about 10 carries for anybody else on the roster. Like I said, those trick plays, those random plays where, guys will be able to get the ball and those will be rushing attempts. Let's give it to about 10 right there, okay? So there you have it. And this is sort of the projections for the other guys. So if these end up being the rushing attempts, roughly, of these guys, you add that up. So let me bring that down here. You add all of this up, this is going to come out to about 285 rushes, okay? So 285 total rushes here. And remember I told you this number 468 times, that's how many times the Bears rush the ball. Let's do around that number 450. Let's reduce it a little bit because maybe the Bears pass the ball a little bit more this season. They are less reliant on the run. We can go with 450. That's a very nice assumption. So total rushes, 450, okay? And you subtract that from 285, the rest of these guys, that leaves you with 165 total rushes, okay? And that is the number for one David Montgomery, okay? So if we were to project it like this, that's how many rushes David Montgomery has left for himself when we divvy up everything else. 165 rushes is a far cry from the 250 carries or the rushes that Jordan Howard had last year. So everybody assuming that, David Montgomery is just going to take the Jordan Howard role. It's not that simple because of the fact that you've got Mike Davis, okay, that we added. We've got Cordell Patterson that we added. And we don't just pay these guys to not do nothing. They are going to take some carries away, okay? So it's not like it's the same running situation as last season. So, again, you guys might be thinking, 165 is way too low. David Montgomery should easily get 200, 225, 250 carries. And my question to you is, yeah, I would love that. But where do you see it happening here? Who's getting less touches? Now, again, remember I told you this is with the assumption that Tariq Cohen gets about 75 carries, not even the 99. If you do the 99 or the 100 that he got last year, essentially, this goes lower, okay? So who is getting less, rushes here, okay? Certainly, you would have to take a lot away from Tariq Cohen and Mike Davis. If Mike Davis comes down to 75, 50 carries, if Tariq Cohen comes down to 70, a little bit more, does Mitch Trubisky come down to 50, 55? Does Cordell Patterson come down to 20? So I'm not saying there isn't room or there's no way, David Montgomery hits that 250 carry mark. I'm just saying it's hard for me to see it. So for me, again, doing an exact projection on his exact, carries and yardage total, I mean, that's unrealistic. Okay, so for me, what would work better and what's more important for you guys is a realistic range. Okay, so if we take into account what is the realistic range here for David Montgomery. So if we want to talk about a realistic range here, for me, what's realistic based off of how I see the ball being split up, 150 to 175 carries. For David Montgomery, 800 to 1,000 rushing yards, because I do believe he'll average about 5 yards a carry. I think he's that talented. And then just to throw in the receiving totals as well, I'll do that. But 150, 175 carries, 800 to 1,000 rushing yards. Let's give him 5 touchdowns. That's rushing touchdowns. 35 catches for 300 yards, because he can catch the balls, catch balls. And we're going to do about 2 touchdowns, okay? So that is a realistic projection for Tariq Cohen. And again, maybe I should do ranges here. We can do, 25 to 35, but you get the point here. This is the realistic range here for, did I say Tariq Cohen? I meant David Montgomery, for guys, if I misspoke. But this is the realistic range here for David Montgomery, because again, I'm telling you, I got no issues with that 250 yards. I want that too. I want to draft David Montgomery, and I believe he's going to be very, very good. But that would mean taking away from the rest of the guys, okay? So that's what you have to pay attention to. Who gets reduced workload here? There could be a point where what I believe happens is David Montgomery becomes their starter, week 5, week 6 of the season, early on to the midway point, and then, primarily gets the rock. And again, if Tariq Cohen becomes the clear pass catching back, and that's the only thing he is, he basically gets no rushing attempts, he's only on the field for pass catching, then again, you can reduce this workload a lot. And then Mike Davis, could he just become a goal line back, okay, and not get those carries? You can take that as well. Does Mitch Trubisky go down and not take as many rushing attempts? You can take this down as well. And Cordell Patterson, is he situationally just a gadget player? You can take this down as well. So again, you can play around with these numbers and go ahead and do so. But for the most part, looking at the Bears roster, this is what I see as a realistic projection for David Montgomery in his rookie season. I'd love to think otherwise, because Jordan Howard had, like 1,300 yards his rookie season. But it's just that he didn't have as much competition as one David Montgomery does. So again, realistic here, but could David Montgomery get more carries? Could he get more yards? 1,200 yards, 200, 250 carries? Yes, he could. But somebody's suffering here. So again, folks, there you have it. The football meat sandwich that I told you guys about. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Please make sure to subscribe, as always. Thanks for watching.